Syria stood in the dimly lit dungeon, her heart pounding as she spotted Bibi, her loyal knight, behind the iron bars. "Bibi, my lady, are you all right?" Syria's voice trembled with concern. Bibi rose from her seat, looking both surprised and worried. "How did you know I was here?" "His Grace told me." "Wait, that's not the point. What on earth possessed you to throw your gauntlet at Callus's knights? That's contempt." Syria looked both exasperated and confused. Bibi crossed her arms and sighed. "It was merely a duel challenge, my lady. I showed great restraint not to aim it straight at Marquis Hanaton." Syria groaned, rubbing her forehead. "Bibi, you really must work on that temper." A voice interrupted. "What Sir Abigail did wasn't a challenge. It was a rampage." Syria turned toward the door. "Ah, Sir Elliot." He leaned casually against the doorway, a slight smile on his lips. "She narrowly avoided being expelled from the Empire, but no need to fret. Thanks to His Grace's mercy, she'll be released in a few days." Bibi shot him a glare, which he ignored. Syria smiled in relief. "How can I ever repay such kindness?" "Repayment?" Elliot smirked. "Abigail should be the one repaying him." Syria laughed. "Of course, Bibi's a true knight. She won't forget a debt." Still unimpressed, Bibi muttered. "So how long are you two planning to loiter in a dungeon?" Later, outside the prison, Syria walked beside Elliot. "Isn't it cold in there? What if Bibi freezes?" Elliot tensed slightly. "Do you mean that seriously, my lady? That woman could survive being buried in a glacier and walk out unscathed." He looked half proud, half bewildered. "Where did you even find such a sturdy knight?" Syria exhaled, a small smile playing on her lips. "When she's freed, I'll bring her warm beef soup and wrap her in the thickest cloak I can find. She can stay in my chambers for now." Elliot chuckled, trying to hide it. "What's so funny?" Syria asked. "Nothing. Just, I can see why His Grace finds you so interesting, Lady Syria." "Syria Bland? You mean Archduke Rausch?" He nodded, and she remembered. The Archduke's words on her wedding day, as she stood on the edge of death. "You cannot die. Wouldn't it be too cruel for your life to end this way?" And last night, when he said her effort to protect House Burke gave him hope, her cheeks flushed, a strange comfort blooming in her chest. Suddenly, Lennon appeared, looking exhausted. "You two seem to be having a good time." Syria gasped. "Lennon, your face. Are you all right?" He winced. "Not particularly. Ever since your marriage, I've been swamped. And now we've moved the wedding banquet to year-end." She felt a pang of guilt. "It's as if all of this is my fault." But Elliot gently chimed in. "Your work inspecting the glacier outweighs anything we've done. Usually, the lady of the castle would assist me, but with your health and the lack of royal approval on your marriage, it's only right I take charge." Syria glanced at Lennon with new appreciation. "The people of House Burke are far kinder than I expected. Thank you, Lennon." He cleared his throat, flustered. "You're welcome, my lady. Just focus on preparing for the year-end celebration. It's the day after tomorrow. Sir Elliot, if you're free, could you assist me with the preparations?" Lennon asked. "I'm never free," Elliot replied dryly. Syria tilted her head. "Should I help?" Lennon paled. "No need, my lady. I'll handle it." 2 days later, Begonia gasped. "Heavens, Lady Syria, you look absolutely stunning." Syria eyed her reflection. "Isn't it too much?" Begonia smiled warmly. "You're soon to become an archduchess. It's perfectly fitting." Syria murmured. "The Archduke only married me to save my life." Begonia's gaze softened. "I've seen many acts of kindness turn into destiny." Syria's heart clenched. "Destiny." A knock broke the silence. A maid peeked in. "My lady, she was cut off." "Syria, please, speak to me for a moment," came a voice from behind. Begonia gasped. "Saint Lena, have you lost your mind?" Still facing the mirror, Syria said calmly, "Please leave us, Begonia. I'd like to hear what she has to say." Begonia hesitated, but obeyed. Once alone, Syria asked, "We're alone now. What is it?" Lena's voice wavered. "Please don't blame Callus too harshly. It was me. I kept begging him to take me to the glacier. I didn't know there'd be a storm." Syria's expression hardened. "You knew he was my fiancé, Lena." Lena's lips trembled. "I just wanted one last beautiful memory with him." Syria felt the blood drain from her face. "One last memory? So now that you've had it, you're done with him?" Syria sighed. I ended up bullying her, didn't I? Just like in the original story, she thought bitterly. Lena's voice broke through her thoughts. I really hoped we could be friends. Syria, holding her head in exhaustion, replied, Do you honestly think a man's wife and his ex-fiancé can be close? Lena looked at her hopefully. Why not? Syria raised a brow. Pardon? Lena smiled wistfully. Callus and I were never formally married. You know that. Syria scoffed. That's between you and him. It doesn't concern me. A knock at the door. My lady, it's time. A maid called. Lena's voice softened one last time. I truly thought we could be close. After all, wasn't your mother a commoner who became a performer? Syria's eyes widened, her breath catching. The words cut deep, deeper than she expected. Meanwhile, in the Archduke's study, Lenin stood beside the Archduke, his expression tense yet determined. Am I mistaken, or was Lady Syria the same woman who collapsed at her wedding from massive blood loss? He asked quietly. Rooch glanced at him, unimpressed. If not, then what exactly are you implying, Lenin? Lenin shifted uncomfortably. Why haven't you stopped her from overworking herself? Rauch sighed, setting down his pen. And how should I stop someone so determined to be useful? It's better for her to stay busy than to drown in idle thoughts. Then, with a pointed look, he added, But tell me, Lenin, why are you suddenly so concerned about her? Lenin flinched. I simply respect people who carry out their duties swiftly and efficiently. Rosh raised a skeptical brow. In fact, Lenin pressed on, thanks to Lady Syria, the year-end preparations were completed in record time. You're only able to sit here leisurely because of her hard work. His eyes drifted to the papers in Rush's hand. And what exactly has captured your attention, Your Grace? Lenin stepped closer, reading the document. House Burke will invite a sorcerer from the kingdom of Nesla to purify the demonic presence at Laurel Amnor. If the ritual fails... The room fell silent. Lenin swallowed. So this will be your final visit to the manor? Most likely, Rush replied quietly. Will you be taking Lady Syria with you? Lenin asked. I suppose I should, Rush said, standing. Even if this marriage is temporary, she is still my wife. I wonder what the demons will say when they see her, Lenin said thoughtfully. Roche gave a faint smile. I'm curious myself. As he headed for the door, Lenin asked, Where are you going, Your Grace? The festival's about to begin. It would be rather heartless of me not to escort my wife. In the corridor, Rush spotted Callus approaching. Well, Marquis Hanaton, he said, stopping. What brings you here? I came to collect Lady Lena, Callus answered firmly. The saint? She's back again? Callus nodded, unsure. I don't know why she returned either. Rush scoffed. That's saint. Callus straightened his back. Your Grace, when do you intend to annul your marriage? Rausch's gaze turned cold. Annul? Callus pressed on. I'm grateful you saved her life. House Hanaton will repay the debt. Rausch chuckled, catching Callus off guard. And why would you repay my wife's debt? Callus stiffened. Your Grace, are there still ties between you and Syria? Rush asked coolly. I intend to divorce Lady Lena, Callus said, and I've already received Marquis Kelladon's approval to marry Syria. Approval? Rush echoed, almost laughing. I married her to save her life. Do you really think I'd care about such arrangements? His smile faded. All of this is your fault. Callus was about to respond when a shout interrupted them. Lady Syria! Both men turned. Moments earlier in Syria's chamber, Lena's words rang with cruelty. Wasn't your mother a commoner who became a performer? No matter how pretty she was just a lowly actress. Syria's eyes burned. That again. It was only mentioned once in the original story, but it still made her blood boil. Even if I'm only possessing this body, why does it still cut so deeply? She wondered, rage bubbling inside her. I like your background, Syria. What does it matter if your mother was a commoner? I'm one too, so we're the same. Lena said with a cheerful, clueless smile. Begonia and two maids stood by, wide-eyed at her audacity. Then, suddenly, Syria raised her hand and slapped herself. The room froze. Syria? What are you doing? Lena gasped, but Syria's gaze was sharp, calm. Where did you hear that? She asked coldly. My tutor, Viscount Aeson, Lena stammered. Then he must have told you I loathe that subject, and that in noble society such remarks are a grave insult. She stepped closer. If this were days ago, I might have just walked away, But how long do I have to keep enduring this? It's not the Viscount's fault. I just didn't know, Lena said weakly. They've both wronged me, Callus and Lena. And I kept letting it go. But I'm allowed to be angry, Syria thought. She leaned in, gripping the back of Lena's chair. You're a Marchioness, a saint, and a stern. You can't go around saying whatever you like just because you don't understand. Lena looked up at her, stunned. Syria? You're not a child, Lena. Be mindful of your position. Without another word, Syria left the room. Outside, she leaned against the wall, her mind spiraling. Should I report this to the priest? But what good would it do? Would it change that I'm still seen as the villain? She turned back to go in, but bumped into someone. Lady Syria, what are you doing? Rush said, steadying her. She looked up, startled, then softened. Your Grace? After her confrontation with Lena, Syria storms out, emotionally shaken. Rooch catches her, just as she stumbles in the hallway, steadying her with a concerned look. She's surprised to see him and asks if he had followed her. Calmly, Roosh responds that he had been right behind her since she left the room. Syria admits she hadn't noticed, having been too deep in thought. As the tension eases slightly, Roosh gently lifts her chin, inspecting the faint redness on her cheek. Syria stiffens, but then confesses. She slapped herself during an argument with Lena. Though she brushes it off as nothing serious, Roosh cuts in, clearly not convinced. He doesn't press her further, but suggests they step out for some air to cool her cheek before heading to the ball. Outside on the terrace, silence falls between them. Syria steals glances at Rooch, trying not to stare. When he catches her, she stammers an excuse about worrying that his white clothes might get dirty. Roosh chuckles softly and remarks that he wishes he could peek inside her head to understand how her mind works, his cheeks slightly flushed. The moment grows tender as he compliments her dress, causing Syria to blush and admit that Begonia picked it out for her. They begin to head back when Syria suddenly remembers something. She hesitantly asks if Callus had visited the annex, claiming she thought she caught the scent of his distinct cologne. Roosh's expression darkens subtly, and though he doesn't answer her directly, he stiffly tells her not to fall behind. Syria follows, unsure if she'd said something wrong, while Roosh quietly seethes at the idea that she still remembers Callus's scent so clearly. Meanwhile, inside the ballroom, Callus and Lena arrive, drawing whispers and judgmental stares from the gathered nobles. Lena feels uneasy and suggests they leave, but Callus demands to know what happened between her and Syria earlier. Lena feigns innocence, claiming she only tried to apologize, but Callus doesn't believe her. Before the conversation can continue, the herald announces the arrival of Archduke Rauch and his wife, Syria Stern. The crowd falls silent. All eyes turn to the grand entrance as the couple walks in arm. Syria looks ethereal, her silver gown shimmering like moonlight. The nobles are stunned. Whispers of admiration ripple through the room, praising her beauty, her poise, and how perfectly matched she appears with Roosh. Syria's presence commands the ballroom, instantly shifting the atmosphere in her favor. Lena clenches her jaw as the crowd showers Syria with praise, unable to ignore how thoroughly she's been eclipsed. The grand ballroom glittered beneath chandeliers, its golden light dancing over polished marble and silken gowns. Syria stood at the edge of it all, watching, distant, like a guest at her own event. You didn't rescind their invitations? Rash asked quietly, his tone edged with disbelief. What would I have told them? Syria replied, her voice calm. Any number of things, Rash murmured, clearly referring to Callus and Lena. They have just as much right to be here as I do, Syria said, trying to sound composed. It's not like I'm the star of the evening. Rash looked at her for a beat. If not you, then who? He asked softly. Before Syria could respond, Lena approached, but stopped when her tutor caught her shoulder. Lady Lena, I thought I made it clear. You're to avoid Lady Syria for now. Lena's face fell. Do you enjoy belittling yourself? Her tutor added, coolly. Back at the dance floor, Syria tried to shake the weight of her thoughts. It's hard to see it any other way, she admitted with a weak smile. Rauch took her hand firmly. This evening is for you, not them. Come. It's tradition for the star to open the first dance. Syria hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Yes, Your Grace. As music swelled, Syria and Rauch took to the floor. The crowd watched in stunned silence as they moved, graceful and in sync. Why are they the only ones dancing? Lena whispered. Because his grace is of a higher rank than most, her tutor replied. House Burke stands beside the imperial family itself. Lena's expression was unreadable as she stared at the pair. Her thoughts churned until a servant approached. Marquise Hannington is looking for you, my lady. Her tutor excused herself, and Lena continued watching the couple, her face darkening. Maybe. I should have chosen that side instead, she thought bitterly. Later, Syria escaped the crowded ballroom, stepping onto the terrace under the stars. The cold air was calming, the silence welcome. She stared up at the night sky, thinking about everything that had brought her here. A few days ago, I thought I'd be Marchioness Hannington, she mused. If I'd married Callus, would I have avoided the ending in the original story? She clenched her fingers. I really thought his feelings were real, but like in the novel, he still can't shake Lena. She sighed deeply. I don't even want to think about that anymore. Syria. A soft voice broke the silence. She turned. Lena stood at the terrace entrance. Lena? Let's finish our talk from earlier, Lena said quietly. Back inside, Rooch scanned the ballroom. Have you seen Syria? He asked Lennon. I believe she went to the Terra. Lennon paused, catching himself. Wait, since when do you call her by name? Roush tilted his head. You mean the Archduchess Terrace? Lennon's eyes widened as he remembered Syria's earlier words. I can't go out there. I have no right. It's been closed for years, Roosh said softly. But she's the Archduchess now. I reopened it for her. Was that presumptuous? No need to close it, Roosh decided, smiling faintly. She deserves a moment alone. Still, he noticed Callus scanning the ballroom, his expression restless. Back on the terrace, Syria narrowed her eyes at Lena. This is the Archduchess's terrace, she said sharply. Even the Archduke doesn't come here. How did you? Syria. Lena's voice trembled. I told Callus I want a divorce. Syria's face didn't change. And? I know divorces are hard for the Stern family, but I want to return what I took from you, Lena said, grabbing Syria's hand, tears forming in her eyes. Syria smiled bitterly. You misunderstood. Whether you divorce him or he dies, it makes no difference to me. I don't love him anymore. She yanked her hand back. What do you want from me, Lena? I don't want anything. It's just that. Lena's words trailed off as Syria blinked. That scent. Her eyes widened. Callus, she thought, turning to see him at the door. Lena's voice quivered. I know I don't belong here. I feel like a third person, caught between you and him. Syria froze. Those words, I just said that to Roosh earlier. She looked away, then back toward the ballroom. Callus is right there, Syria said calmly. You can probably see him better than I can, so why say that now? So he could hear you? Lena gasped. No, I didn't mean. Was it to prove your sincerity? Or to make me look like the villain again? Lena's breath hitched. That. Syria's voice dropped to a whisper. Am I doomed to be the villain in your story? She rubbed her cheek absently. I've never done anything to you, she added softly. Not once. She turned away. I'll go since you won't. Syria, Lena called, but just as Syria turned back, a blinding flash of light erupted. Lena was gone. Only her shoe remained on the terrace floor. Syria's eyes widened in shock. Lena? She whispered, bewildered. The moon hung high in the sky, casting its cold glow over the terrace. Syria stood frozen, her mind racing to comprehend what had just happened. Did Lena just... Could it be? She thought, stunned. Before she could form a coherent thought, Callus's voice rang out in sheer panic. Syria! Did you just push Lena off the ledge? His voice trembled with shock and accusation. Syria's breath hitched as she turned to face him. What? Just then, Lena's tutor rushed onto the terrace. Your lordship, what are you saying? He gasped, dashing toward them. Syria's eyes flicked from Callus's frantic expression to the ledge where Lena had just been. It was unthinkable. Honestly, Callus, do you truly intend to hurt me until the very end? Her voice trembled with bitter disappointment. Syria? He began, but before he could finish, Lena appeared, floating just outside the terrace. Her powers had awakened. Lena! Lena! Callus cried, running toward her as she dropped into his arms, sobbing. Syria clenched her fists. She knew the truth. In the original story, Lena would travel between her world and this one multiple times. She had expected it, but not tonight. Lena, are you all right? What happened? Callus asked, holding her close. Syria watched, her thoughts churning. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. No, not yet. Suddenly, Lena's weak voice cut through the chaos. Please, please help me. She sobbed, clutching the terrace edge. Lena, calm down. Callus said urgently, his panic palpable. Syria sighed. The second disappearance isn't supposed to happen for another year. But what does it matter? It has nothing to do with me. She turned away, her heart aching. I never thought Callus would suspect me of being a murderer. Behind her, Callus's voice cracked with regret. Syria, I misspoke. Please, don't look at me like that. She didn't turn back. She had done everything she could to survive in this world, fighting to redeem herself from the villainous role she had been handed. Hadn't he seen her efforts? When he proposed, it had felt like her hard work was finally being rewarded. But in the end, he had chosen Lena, leaving Syria teetering on the edge of despair. His words echoed cruelly in her mind. Did you just push Lena off the ledge? Just Lena's disappearance had been enough to make him doubt her. It was all for nothing, she thought, now sitting at the bottom of the stairs, her head bowed. A familiar voice pulled her from the depths of her thoughts. Syria, I always seem to find you like this. It was Rooch. She looked up, wariness in her gaze. Yes, and I always seem to let you see me like this. Did you hear everything? She asked. He crouched beside her. Well, the Marquis and the Saint weren't exactly whispering. Syria exhaled heavily. I see. Roosh gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. You seem close to tears. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, I suppose I do feel like crying. She covered her face with her hands. The next morning, the news spread quickly. Lena had been taken away by the High Priest in a sudden fit of rage. High Priest Amos? Syria repeated, furrowing her brows as she sat in her chambers. He's stern, yes, but not the type to get angry so easily. Did you come here just to tell me that, Lennon? She asked, startling him. Ah, well, it seems His Grace hasn't spoken with you yet, Lennon began. What subject? Syria pressed. Have you by chance heard of Laurel Manor, Your Grace? He was interrupted by a knock on the door. Syria, please, give me a moment before you go. I beg you. It was Callus, looking sorrowful as he stepped into the room. Before Syria could answer, Lennon's voice snapped. Pardon me, Marquis Hannington, but am I invisible to you? Callus ignored him, eyes only on Syria as he moved forward. Whether you stay or leave is your own affair, he muttered. Lennon tensed. My lord, that is completely, he began, but Callus dropped to his knees beside Syria's chair, silencing the room. Syria, I'm sorry. I know this apology can't undo the pain I've caused you, but please give me one more chance. She stared at him, her heart in turmoil. Callus, what difference would it make if we started over? Would you truly stay, even if Lena asked for you again? Callus opened his mouth, but she cut him off. No, you'd go to her the moment she called your name. Her voice turned icy. What was it you asked me yesterday? Did you just push Lena off the ledge? Not even a servant assumed that. You were the first to accuse me. She let that sink in. But I understand. My reputation precedes me. You nearly lost your arm because of me. Still, you've wounded me more deeply than I ever imagined. I don't want to live like this anymore. She rose, her expression resolute. I won't keep pretending these absurd events are just part of the original story. I refuse to live in fear. Drawing out the engagement ring, she placed it on the table. Let's end things between us once and for all. She turned to leave. Lennon, let's continue our conversation outside. Yes, my lady, he replied. Without glancing back, Syria walked out, leaving Callus behind, kneeling, broken, and whispering, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Syria. Tears streamed down his cheeks. The following day, Syria strolled quietly beside Lennon. Weren't you about to tell me something yesterday? She asked, breaking the silence. Lennon paused, then nodded. Would that be appropriate, your ladyship? Syria frowned. Why wouldn't it be? He sighed. Well, it feels insensitive. You just ended things with the Marquise yesterday. I assumed you'd be emotionally drained from all the crying. Syria scoffed, flustered. Crying? Please, that was just me letting out some pent-up feelings. She quickly changed the subject. Anyway, what was it you wanted to say? Before Lennon could speak, a cheerful voice interrupted them. Oh, Bibi? Syria smiled warmly as her escort knight approached with Elliot. Lady Syria! Bibi greeted her, and Syria placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You've been through so much, Syria said softly. It wasn't too terrible, my lady, Bibi replied modestly. Syria removed her cloak and draped it over her. Take this. It's the thickest one I have. My lady, you really don't have to. No arguing, Syria insisted, tucking it around her. Was the dungeon cold? She asked gently. You should go get some warm stew right away. It wasn't as bad as the time I was dunked in icy water for 3 days, Bibi said with a straight face. Anyway, I assume you took care of that man or woman while I was gone? Or both, hopefully? Syria chuckled. No, I didn't, Bibi sighed. A pity. May I? Syria blinked. You'd be executed. I wouldn't get caught, Bibi said, deadly serious. Elliot cleared his throat. Sir Abigail, there are ears everywhere. Before anyone could respond, Lennon interjected loudly, eyes shut. May I please speak now? Syria laughed. Yes, go ahead. Lennon straightened. This is of utmost importance. Have you heard of Laurel Manor? Syria's eyes narrowed. Laurel Manor? It's a somewhat forgotten estate in certain circles. You're to accompany the Archduke there tomorrow. Syria's mind raced. Laurel Manor. She remembered a brief mention of it in the original novel. It had always felt like a footnote. Faded, mysterious. Tomorrow? She asked. Do you have plans? Lennon said cautiously. No, I don't. Thank goodness. His Grace kept missing his chance to tell you. It would have been dreadful if you only found out on the day of departure. Please prepare thoroughly. I will, Syria nodded, though a strange unease crept into her chest. The next day. Snow fell gently outside the carriage as it rocked steadily down the road. Syria groaned inwardly. Seriously, what is happening right now? She was nestled against Rooch, cradled in his arms. Callus, sitting opposite, spoke coolly. Go back to sleep. We've still got a ways to go. How am I supposed to sleep like this? Syria thought, her face flushed. 1 hour earlier. Roush had entered her chambers quietly. We need to leave before the storm worsens, he'd told the maid. Shall I wake her? No. She looks peaceful, the most relaxed I've seen her in ages. We'll leave as is. And with that, he gently carried her into the carriage. Now awake and embarrassed, Syria wiggled. Please put me down so I can move to the other seat. You've no shoes, Roosh replied. She blinked. What? Why not? There wasn't time to bring them. They're in the luggage carriage. Just rest for now, Syria stuttered. And you expect me to sleep like this? Roosh tilted his head. This carriage is too cold. He reached down and touched her bare feet. Your Grace, don't touch those, she stammered. Callus raised an eyebrow. Palev, why not? What do you mean, why not? Do you go around touching people's feet? Rosh chuckled. You're not just anyone, are you? Syria blushed furiously. Still? Wait, are we going to Laurel Manor for our bridal night? Rosh grinned. Exactly. She narrowed her eyes. You're lying. How could you tell? I can read your face, Your Grace. It's a survival skill when you're stuck with a male lead. Rosh smiled, holding her feet a bit more gently. They looked cold. There aren't many options in a carriage. Syria turned redder. And no thank you. As your future Archduchess, no, as a proud stern, I must decline. You are my Archduchess, Rooch said gently, and if she's opposed, the Archduke must respect that. He adjusted her robe to better cover her feet. Syria sat quietly, heart pounding. Suddenly, a loud thud rocked the carriage. What was that? Roosh exclaimed, just as a knight's voice rang out, Monsters! Monsters have appeared! As the blizzard raged, a cry shattered the silence. Monsters had appeared. Roush acted swiftly, ordering his knights to don their astral armor. Before heading into the storm, he gently placed Syria on the seat, assuring her that he'd be safe. She held onto his cape, quietly asking him not to get hurt. Left alone in the dimly lit carriage, Syria shivered, wondering if the monster's appearance was somehow linked to her not visiting the glacier recently. Just then, Lennon burst in, shivering from the cold and revealing he'd been riding on the luggage carriage. As they talked, Lennon warned her, once they arrived at Laurel Manor, she must only speak deferentially to Rouch. Speaking respectfully to anyone else could get them both killed, he whispered. Before he could explain further, the carriage jolted violently as monsters attacked. Syria clung to the seat, calling out to Lennon. She noticed a strange glow on his injury, demonic energy. Despite feeling dizzy, she embraced him, channeling her weak, purifying power in an effort to help him. Just as the monster broke into the carriage, Rausch arrived, slaying the beast instantly. Once things settled, Syria finished purifying Lenin. As she checked his face and confirmed he'd be okay, Rausch teased Lenin for appearing half-dead. Soon after, Elliot reported the threat was neutralized, but the carriage was no longer usable. They continued on horseback, with Syria seated in front of Rausch. She protested playfully, calling herself baggage or a silkworm, and he responded in kind, wrapping his cloak around her. Though he was cold, she felt warm in his arms. As they rode through the storm, Rausch whispered, "We're nearly there." Through the swirling snow, Laurel Manor loomed, eerie and imposing, just as it had been described in the novel. Rausch carried Syria through the grand, silent halls of Laurel Manor, the eerie beauty of the place striking her immediately. Yet beneath the surface, Syria felt something deeply unpleasant. When Marta, a manor resident, spotted them, she was shocked, especially seeing Syria in Rausch's arms. Mistaking the situation, she questioned if the Archduke had kidnapped his bride. Rausch was flustered, while Syria quickly clarified it was only temporary. Marta, warm and strong-willed, took charge and whisked Syria away, insisting on getting her warmed up. As Marta led her to a bath, Syria began to sense that Laurel Manor was far from ordinary. Marta, though cheerful, hinted at more serious undercurrents, especially when she subtly warned Lenin about Syria speaking formally to him. After a relaxing bath, Syria learned from Marta that only 3 people were currently living at the manor: herself, the butler, and the gardener. Meanwhile, Lenin spoke with Bastian, the elusive butler of House Burke. They discussed how Laurel Manor had remained unchanged since that day. Bastian also brought up Lenin's past harsh comments about Syria, which Lenin now deeply regretted, especially since their current relationship was on better terms. Unbeknownst to them, Syria overheard this conversation. When she confronted them, Lenin quickly deflected and ushered her to the dining table. Bastian formally introduced himself, and Syria noted how rare it was to see a butler, especially one who never appeared at the main castle. As she sat, Syria noticed mold creeping along the wall, but something about it was wrong. It moved. She realized it might not be mold at all, but demonic shadows, a cursed presence she remembered from the original story of the world she was in. These demonic shadows had once plagued the Imperial Palace and were only purged by Lena, the heroine, using divine purification. Worried, she asked Lenin if Rausch had mentioned this. He hesitated, then admitted His Grace had already tried everything and was now calling them to the manor. Syria froze. Pardon? A tense silence hung in the air of Laurel Manor, as thick as the black mold clinging to its walls. Syria sat quietly, still processing Lenin's calm revelation. Having exhausted all other possible means, His Grace has resorted to calling sorcerers from the kingdom of Nesla. Pardon? Syria's voice was sharp, almost involuntary. Lenin continued, his tone matter-of-fact. The manor had been infested with the same mold for 15 years. Every conventional method across the continent had failed to remove it. Sorcerers, despite being frowned upon by the High Church, were now the last resort. Syria frowned. As a stern, she wondered if she should even be privy to such things. You know who I am? Is it really okay for me to hear this? Lenin sighed. His Grace will ensure your silence is well compensated. Syria let out a quiet exhale. Wouldn't it have been simpler not to bring me here in the first place? It seems His Grace wished for you to meet Mrs. Marta. She raised him, more or less, during his youth. That caught Syria off guard. Still, she couldn't shake the sense that there was more to the story. We could have arrived after the sorcerers finished their ritual, she said with a wry smile. Lenin paused before answering. The truth is, this will be the final attempt, Lady Syria. She looked up, eyes narrowing. Final attempt. What do you mean by that? Outside, snow fell in heavy silence. Rausch walked through it, cloak trailing. Your Grace, called Elliot, approaching quickly. What of the monsters? They've all been dealt with, Rausch said curtly. And the sorcerers? Elliot asked, more hesitantly. The snow likely delayed them, the plague cut. They should arrive tomorrow. Don't worry, Rausch replied. Then quietly to himself, this time, we'll save her. Back at the manor, Marta was tidying up the guest room. Please sleep here tonight, Your Grace, she told Syria. Your own chambers aren't quite ready. Syria nodded. This room is fine, she said gently. Marta clasped her hand, smiling. And when you leave this place, please stop speaking so politely to everyone. It's not necessary. Syria gave a quiet nod. Marta continued with warmth. You really are quite charming. It's unfortunate this will only be for a few days, but it's my pleasure to serve someone like you. Syria blinked. Only a few days? She echoed. She recalled Lenin's earlier words. The manor was deteriorating, too far gone to last much longer. Then why hasn't everyone been moved to the main castle? She had asked him. He'd hesitated. That would, well, you'll understand soon enough, Your Grace. Now, left with more questions than answers, Syria sat in quiet reflection. As Marta adjusted the curtains, Syria hesitated. Where will His Grace be sleeping tonight? Marta blinked. Here, of course, she said simply, drawing the curtain shut. Syria stared. Huh? These are His Grace's bedchambers, Marta added with a small smile. Syria flushed. What? Oh, did I forget to mention that? Later that night, the Archduke returned as composed as ever. He entered the manor, shedding his cloak as Marta greeted him. You've returned, Your Grace. What of Syria? He asked, his tone quiet. Asleep already. She seemed quite tired. He gave a brief nod, and his expression softened, if only for a moment. Nearby, Bastian, the butler, murmured, Is she truly Syria Stern? She's not at all like how Lenin described her a few years ago. That would be her, Marta confirmed. She seems entirely different. Did something happen to her? Rausch stopped walking. Nothing in particular, he said coolly. She changed after falling in love with some fool. Neither Marta nor Bastian responded. Without another word, Rausch walked away. Inside his chambers, Rausch paused. Syria was asleep, curled awkwardly on the settee, the bed untouched, his brow furrowed. Marta didn't mention she'd be here, and why is she sleeping on that couch? He walked over and gently picked her up, placing her onto the bed. You really are a handful, he muttered, pulling the sheets over her. No fire either. You'll freeze at this rate. He sat nearby, watching her for a moment. Her face, so often guarded during the day, looked relaxed now. Peaceful. He lit the fire, casting a warm glow across the room. Just as he was about to move away, Syria shifted in her sleep and, without fully waking, reached out and held his waist. Rausch froze, a flush rising to his face. Syria, he murmured, caught between surprise and something he couldn't quite name. The morning sun filtered gently into the room as Syria slowly awoke, cocooned in warmth. She murmured sleepily, So warm, and this bed is so squishy. But wait, squishy? Her eyes flew open. Roach Burke, the Archduke himself, was sleeping beside her, cradling her in his arms. Syria panicked, gently wriggling free and pulling the sheets over him with a flushed face. She couldn't help but notice his features were flawless, as if carved by divine hands. Male leads really are something else, she thought, though he could use kinder eyes. Just then, Rausch's eyes opened, locking onto hers. You're going to leave after gawking at me like that? He teased. I wasn't gawking, she protested, cheeks burning. I was just adjusting the blanket. He smirked. Did Marta carry me to bed last night? I did, he replied simply. Why? Would you rather I left my wife on a cold settee? He asked dryly. Why were you even there? I just wanted you to sleep well. You were avoiding me, weren't you? Syria denied it, but Rausch wasn't convinced. And yet you clung to me in your sleep because you were cold. Her face turned crimson. You're twisting the truth. Later, over breakfast, Marta bowed politely. Please call for us once you've finished, Your Grace. Syria turned to Rausch, cautious. About the sorcerers, should I stay in my chambers today? Rausch looked mildly surprised. There's no need. They should be the ones avoiding you, not the other way around. Syria spoke earnestly. I would never accuse you of heresy. You saved my life. He gave a slight nod. That's most generous of you. She hesitated, then asked what had been troubling her. Why are Marta and Bastian still here, despite the manor's condition? I haven't made them stay, he said. They're bound to the manor. Marta, especially, she cannot leave. Syria's eyes widened. Is it a curse? Something like that. She connected the pieces. So, if the manor collapses, Marta, she will die. And that's why you've summoned the sorcerers, to save her. He nodded solemnly. This isn't the first time. I've tried before. All of this, it's my fault. Later, Syria walked with Lenin through the snow-covered grounds. His Grace went out again, even in this weather? He's always like that, Lenin said. diligent to a fault. But what if something happens to him? Lennon paused. You still don't understand him. His grace is the type to survive anywhere, even a desert. Syria thought of Ruch's pain, the guilt in his eyes. Lennon, can you tell me what happened here? Lennon hesitated, then relented. You're now part of House Burke, after all. He told her the story. Years ago, when Ruch was 15, his father brought an illegitimate son to the manor, seeking to replace him as heir. The previous Archduke tormented Ruch and pressured his only knight, Sir Eliot, to bind himself to the manor using the Emerald Sea Chest, a sacred artifact that traps anyone who places a lock of hair inside. To protect Eliot, Marta sacrificed herself instead. She's been bound to Laurel Manor ever since, and those closest to her have chosen to remain here as well. Syria's heart ached. None of this was in the novel. Don't blame His Grace for bringing you here, Lennon said kindly. He simply wanted you to meet Mrs. Marta. I'm not upset, Syria replied sincerely. Thank you for telling me. Lennon smiled, eyes glistening. You are not an outsider. Soon, when the imperial family grants its blessing, you'll become the closest person to His Grace. Syria clenched her fists with resolve. There has to be a way to save this manor, and the people who call it home.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more manhwa content. See you in the next one.